And it came to pass in the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, Aronech, king of Elasar, Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of Goyim, that they made war. A number of historians translate Amraphel as Hammurabi, with Bera, king of Sodom, Bersha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, Shemember, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is Zor. All these joined together in the Valley of Siddim, that is the Valley of the Dead Sea. 12 years they served Chedorlaomer, and in the 13th year they rebelled. This video takes a critical look at the narrative of the Battle of the Vale of Siddim. How fast did that ancient army travel? Thutmose III mobilized his forces and marched toward Megiddo in 1457 BC. His army crossed the borders of Egypt at Tajaru and arrived 10 days later, 150 miles away at Gaza, and rested. That is an average of 15 miles a day. Using an average of 15 miles a day and an average of 7 miles a day in difficult terrain, Larsa's army marched to force tribute to be paid to Elam, implying that Larsa was a vassal of Elam. 1,400 miles, taking over 90 days. Babylon's army marched with Elam to force tribute be paid to Elam, implying Babylon was a vassal of Elam. This is over 1,200 miles, taking over 80 days. Elam's army marched through Mari, implying Mari was a vassal of Elam. This was about 1,500 miles, taking about 100 days. Which nation was the fourth? Was it Hattusa of the Hittites? Did Goyim mean Gentiles? Was Goyim Gutium? Gutium, however, ended around 2050 BC, the last ruler being Kirigan. This date is too early to join the others in an attack on Siddim. In the 14th year, Chedorlaomer and the kings that were with him came and attacked the Rephaim and Ashtaroth Karnaim, the Zuzim of Ham, the Emet in Shaven Kirathaim, and the Horites in their mountain of Seir. As far as El-Paran, which is by the wilderness. Then they turned back and came to El-Mishpat, that is Kadesh. And they conquered the whole territory of the Amalekites, as well as the Amorites, who were living in Hazazon Tamar. Then the king of Sodom, the king of Gomorrah, the king of Admah, the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is Zor, marched out and drew up their battle lines in the Valley of Siddim against Chedorlaomer, the king of Elam, Tidal, king of Goyim, Amraphel, king of Shinar, and Aronech, king of Eleazar, 4 kings against 5. The 4 kings seized all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their food. Then they went away. There has always been a debate of where Sodom lies. Some think to the north of the Dead Sea, some say to the west of the Dead Sea, others to the south of the Dead Sea. Ezekiel 16:46 likens cities to sinful women. It locates Sodom in relationship to Jerusalem. Your older sister was Samaria, who lived to the north of you with her daughters, and your younger sister, who lived to the south of you with her daughters, was Sodom. Now when Abram heard that his nephew was taken captive, he armed his 318 trained men who were born in his own house, and went in pursuit as far as Dan. Note, the town of Dan at the time of Abraham was likely the land of Danunah. This was referenced in Amarna letter EA 151. And he divided his forces against them and defeated them at night. What if Hatti was the fourth kingdom? They would have to join the other three armies somewhere on their route. That coordination would be difficult. Babylon was conquered by the Hittites in the year 1595 BC. The Hittites made raids along the Euphrates River, bypassing Assyria, and captured Mari in Babylon. This was much too late to be in the time of Hammurabi. We see the time frame of Hammurabi at 1765 to 1722 BC, plus or minus 5 years. In the 27th year of rule, Hammurabi allies with Larsha to stop Elam from invading Mesopotamia. The year is 1738 BC. 2 years later, in 1736 BC, Hammurabi invades Larsha. Starting in 1738 BC, it was no longer possible that Babylon was an ally of Elam. Thus, the date range of the Battle of Siddim would be 1765 to 1739 BC. In relation to Abraham's sojourn years, it would be year 2 or 3 to year 9, the notice of Ishmael's birth, thus 428 to 421 years of sojourning before the Exodus. This puts the date of the Exodus from 1344 BC to 1311 BC. This is too early for the pharaoh to be Ramses II. It also puts the Exodus partly in the Amara letters years. Pharaoh was not living in Amara or Thebes at the time of the Exodus. This time frame does not agree with the early Exodus date hypothesis of 1446 BC or the LXX 1400 BC, nor the late date hypothesis of 1250 BC. Recovery of a scarab from the Mount Ebal altar, Joshua 8:30, was from the Ramses II period of 1250 BC. Pottery recovered was from the same period. 1674 BC would be too early for the Hittites. However, the earlier Yamad and their vassals might be capable of making raids to the south. 215 years before the early date of 1265 is 1480 BC, which would be the first year of Thutmose III's reign. It is not likely that Jacob met Pharaoh his first year. The biblical story suggests Joseph knew Pharaoh for a number of years before Jacob came to Egypt. It seems from the narrative that Pharaoh knew Joseph for many years prior. It doesn't look like biblical events line up with history. The end of the Hyksos rule was 265 years before the Exodus. This means if Joseph was made vizier under their king, he must have started at least 60 years before the 215 years spent in Egypt mark. 60 to 70 years must be added to the number of years spent in Egypt. Thus, 430 plus 60 years from 265 BC actually gets one to 1755 BC, right in the 10th regnal year of Hammurabi.